بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وعظيمنا وحبيب قلوبنا وشفيع نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه الغر الميامين. الحمد لله الذي جعلنا من المتمسكين بولاية سيدي ومولاي علي بن أبي طالب. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله. أما بعد، يقول الله في كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن ولا تلمزوا أنفسكم ولا تنابزوا بالألقاب بئس الاسم الفسوق بعد الإيمان ومن لم يتب فأولئك هم الظالمون. The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. The third, with your loudest voices, in honor of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wa zaman. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Why did Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamuhu alayhi name his sons Abu Bakr, Omar and Othman is arguably one of the most controversial questions in Islamic history, and a question that requires a thorough dissection. For without a doubt, it's one of the most hotly contested issues in the Muslim world today, and indeed a discussion that can be approached from a variety of angles, a discussion with a historical base and a contemporary significance. As we know, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen had a number of sons from a number of wives. He had sons from Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam, he had sons from Asma bint Umays, he had sons from Khawla bin Ja'far, and therefore you find that many of the names of his sons are names which are common to us. If you were to ask many people, can you name the sons of Ali ibn Abi Talib, you'll find many of them will be able to tell you Hassan and Hussein. They'll be able to name for you, for example, the names such as Ja'far, Abbas, Abdullah, Aun, Yahya. Yet hardly ever do you hear anyone mentioning the names of his sons Umar or Uthman. Even though Mufid narrates that Ali ibn Abi Talib had a son by the name of Umar, and without a doubt he had a son by the name of Uthman. Many of you, when you've heard the Masaib of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, when you normally hear Bishr bin Hadlam when he speaks to al-Baneen in Medina, when he meets her and he speaks to her, the narration mentions that when he speaks to her, he finds out that she is al-Baneen. He says to her, may Allah reward you over the death of your son Abdullah. She says to him, tell me about Aba Abdullah. He says to her, may Allah reward you over your son Ja'far. She replies to him by saying, tell me about the master of Ja'far. He then says to her, may Allah reward you over your son Uthman. Many times in the Masaib of al-Baneen, we hear that one of the sons is called Uthman. She says, tell me about Aba Abdullah. Then he says to her, may Allah reward you over your son Abbas, where she then drops the child, but then she still asks, tell me about Abu Abdullah. Therefore you found that al-Banin and Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen definitely had a son by the name of Uthman. Likewise you find, as we mentioned, Shaykh al-Mufid mentions that there was a son to Ali ibn Abi Talib who was present in Karbala, maybe a brother of Imam al-Hussein or a son of Imam al-Hussein called Omar. You therefore find people ask the question that why would Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib name his sons Abu Bakr, Omar and Uthman? And recently on YouTube you find many videos have been produced to highlight this particular issue, that there have been a number of scholars from other schools in Islam who have shown proof from Shia literature that Imam Ali had a son called Omar, or Imam Ali had a son called Uthman, and that therefore why do the Shia have a problem with Omar and Uthman? At the end of the day, if Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib can name his sons Omar and Uthman, why can't we name our sons Omar and Uthman? That particular video on YouTube is trying to highlight to us that if you claim to love Ali ibn Abi Talib and you claim to follow him in everything in life, then why don't you name your sons what he named his sons? As in, surely Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib would know that a name is a sensitive issue, as in we know in Islam that one of the rights of your sons is that you give them a good name. When Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib names Hassan, we accepted. Hussein, we accepted. Yahya, we accepted. Abbas, we accepted. Aoun, we accepted. Ja'far, we accepted. But why is it when Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib named his son Uthman, why don't we accept the name Uthman? As in, you'll find some will turn around if you were to ask them, would you name your son Omar? Or would you name your son Uthman? Many will turn around and say, no way. You ask them why? Without a doubt, the way Omar, Abu Bakr and Uthman treated Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam is clearly recorded in the books of history. It doesn't take a great historian to analyze that. That Fatima al-Zahra, within Bukhari, it clearly says Fatima died angry with Abu Bakr and did not want him at her funeral. Yet if there is this issue about Abu Bakr and Omar, then there is an issue that why would Imam Ali name his sons these names? And indeed, if you were to ask many of the followers of Ahlul Bayt, how do you back up Imam Ali naming his sons Omar and Uthman? Many of them will turn around to you and say, listen, Sayyid Ammar, I didn't even know he had sons called Omar and Uthman. As then many will turn around to you and say that we didn't even know Ali ibn Abi Talib had a son called Omar, let alone a son called Uthman. Therefore tonight, the subject of the examination is a sensitive one without a doubt. That did Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib name his sons Abu Bakr, Omar and Uthman? And if he didn't give them these names, then what repercussions does this have on our understanding of history today? Let's examine this particular issue in the following stages. Number one, what is the importance of the name in the religion of Islam? And how does Surah Al-Hujurat highlight to us the way the Arabs used to name themselves and the reform of this? Number two, why did Imam Ali name his son Abu Bakr? And is Abu Bakr a title or is it a name? Number three, if Imam Ali named his son Omar, who did he name his son Omar after? Number four, if Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib named his son Uthman, who did he name Uthman after? Number five, did any of the Khulafa name their sons after Ahlul Bayt, if they loved Ahlul Bayt that much? Number six, how important was the name in the destruction of the followers of Ahlul Bayt and the massacring of their lives? And number seven, when you are given a particular name, how important is it to exemplify the person you're named after? Let's examine this and seek to dissect this topic in complete depth. As we know, within the religion of Islam, if ever you want to look at a chapter in the Quran which explains the moral structure of the religion, there is no chapter like chapter 49 of the Quran. You see, many Muslims who only turn up to the mosque in Muharram, if you were to ask them about the structure of their religion, many of them would not have a clue how to explain their religion. As in many of them you would find would turn around to you and say, to tell you the truth, I don't know where to look for the moral structure of my religion. Mommy and daddy told me that Islam is a religion of akhlaq and I really haven't got a clue why, but anyway, I believe what they believe. When someone in the West today asks you, what's the moral basis of the religion of Islam? Imam, how do you look for an Islamic moral system? Which chapter of the Quran would you guide them? If your non-Muslim friend at work today came up to you and said to you, show me a chapter of the Quran where I could learn morals, many people would not point to Surah 49 of the Quran, whereas Surah Al-Hujurat is the best chapter to show a non-Muslim friend of yours when it comes to Islam and building a moral system, because Surah Al-Hujurat is full of verses as to the finer points of building a system on morality. We pride ourselves in saying that Rasulullah came to do what? إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمْ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I have come to perfect the morals of man. And the best example of the perfection of the morals in the Quran, Surah Al-Hujurat. If tonight all of you go home, instead of jumping to bed straight away, if you could open the Quran and look at chapter 49, when you look at chapter 49, look at the verses. Many of them are beautiful moral verses. For example, verse number 6, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِنْ جَاءَكُمْ فَاسِقٌ بِنَبَإٍ فَتَبَيَّنُوا أَنْ تُصِيبُوا قَوْمًا بِجَهَالَةٍ فَتُصْبِحُوا عَلَى مَا فَعَلْتُمْ نَادِمِينَ. O you who believe, when an evil man comes to you with news, verify the news. Otherwise you'll put someone in ignorance and then regret. Then you have another verse in the Quran, اجتنبوا كثيرا من الظن إن بعض الظن إثم. Be away from suspicion, for suspicion in some cases can be a sin. ولا تجسسوا, and do not spy on one another, ironically in this country. ولا يغتب بعضكم بعضا, and do not backbite one another. You found that Surah Al-Hujurat, without a doubt, if you look at each of its verses, there's a moral essence to them. Of the moral verses which Rasulullah gave to the Arabs was the verse I quoted at the beginning of the lecture, verse 11 of Surah 49. This verse sought to build a moral understanding of each member in Arabia. What did the verse state? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, O you who believe. La yaskhar qawmun min qawmin asa an yakunu khayran minhum. O you who believe, don't let one nation make fun of another nation, because there's a chance the nation they're making fun of is better than them, correct? As in sometimes in a society, you'll have some people who continuously make fun of each other's nations, yes? You'll have some people who come and take the mick out of each other's nations, and subhanallah, it turns out at the end, the nation they're making fun of is much greater than their own. Then the ayah moves on and says, وَلَا نِسَاءٌ مِّن نِسَاءٍ عَسَىٰ يَكُنَّ خَيْرًا مِّنْهُنَّ. And don't let woman make fun of other woman, because that woman you're making fun of may be better than you. The worst disease you can have in a society is when one woman puts her eyes on another. That's the end of a community. Then after that what? After that, وَلَا تَلْمِزُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, which is what? And do not always talk about your bad sins which you've done before. Then after that what? وَلَا تَنَابَزُوا بِالْأَلْقَابِ. Don't make nicknames for one another. And those of you who've heard my majalis in the past will know I've had a whole lecture on nicknames. Don't make nicknames on one another, because that's something can hurt the human being later on in their life. Then came an important moral line. What is it? بِئْسَ الْإِسْمُ الْفُسُوقُ بَعْدَ الْإِيمَانِ. And the worst of names, change them from the time of you being open sinners, now that you've become believers. In which way? Rasulullah, when he was in Arabia, he realized that even in the names there was a problem morally if you don't give the person the right name. When he looked around him in Arabia, he noticed that some of these Arabs in Arabia had some of the most atrocious names possible. As in, when you heard their names, you realized why Arabia was in a state of ignorance. Because whenever you want to know a nation, if it's in a state of ignorance, then look at the names they give their children, then you'll know if it's in a state of ignorance or not. The Quran wanted to highlight that a child, amongst the rights of your child is you give them a good name. If you look at Muslim communities today, when we name, we're not naming anymore according to Islamic names. We're naming now according to what's cool, or what my friend who's a non-Muslim will say, oh, that's a nice name, I can relate to that. Instead, a person should give their child a name which reminds them of a moral exemplar. When Rasulullah was in Arabia, he looked around him and he noticed that a lot of these Arabs, their names were a detriment to what had been given to them. Let me give you an example. One day there was a man who was not a believer in the message of Rasulullah. He used to worship the idols, yes? He used to go towards these idols, and when he'd go towards them, he'd worship every day and worship until one day he thought, you know what? I want to see what happens if a fox comes near this idol, yes? Does the idol protect itself or no? So he saw this fox walk towards his idol. When he saw the fox walk towards the idol, he saw the fox drink some of the milk near the idol. And you know, when a fox drinks something, it lets it all out at the end, yes? So the fox stood on one and it let everything out. And when it let everything out, it let everything out on the idol. That person turned around and thought, if my idol that I worship can't protect itself from the urine of a fox, how's it going to protect me? So he went to the Holy Prophet. He said, oh Muhammad, I want to join the religion of Islam. Rasulullah said to him, you're more than welcome, come join. What's your name? He said, Ghawi bin Zalim, the transgressing son of an oppressor. What happened there, isn't it? What happened to you the day your mom gave birth to you? That must have been one really bad day. Who names their son Ghawi? And on top of that, Zalim. Yes, so Ghawi bin Zalim. Rasulullah came to me and said, come here, come here. No, I changed your name to Rashid bin Abdullah. Yes, Rashid means the one who, for example, is a guide or is guiding. And Abdullah, servant of Allah. Another time Rasulullah met someone who wanted to join the religion. He said to him, what's your name? He said, Abd al-Shar, the servant of evil. Rasulullah said, no, that's not the best of names for people to hear. So we'll change your name to Abd al-Khair. He came to someone else one day. He said to him, what's your name? He said, Abd al-Jinn. Yes, I'm the servant of jinn. And someone like that we definitely don't want in the middle of a community. So Rasulullah said, no, change your name to Abdullah. Rasulullah on another occasion met someone. He said to him, what's your name? The person said, Shaitan. Yes. Imagine, as in when you know a community is in ignorance, you look at the names. That person was called Shaitan. Rasulullah looked at him and he said, no, that your name should change as well. There were even some women who had names which the Holy Prophet wanted to change as well. As in one day he met a lady, her name was Asiya. Please mark the word. Sometimes people ask me, can we name Asiya? There's a difference between Asiya and Asiya. Asiya with a ayn means sinful. Asiya, wife of Pharaoh, is with an alif. There's no problem naming Asiya. That's the wife of Pharaoh. But Asiya with a ayn means the sinful. Rasulullah said, change your name from Asiya to Jamila. Rasulullah would then turn around to everyone and highlight the importance of the name by saying what? He would turn around and he'd say, your child has 3 rights. Number 1, you teach them the Quran. Number 2, you teach them akhlaq. And number 3, you give them a good name, without a doubt. That when you look at your child, don't give them the name of some atheist Persian king, or don't give them the name of, for example, some poet who was a drunkard. Try and give them the name of someone who exemplifies the most beautiful of morals. That's why I remember Omar ibn al-Khattab, when he was Khalifa, one day a person came with his son and he said, oh Khalifa, I want to complain to you about my son. So Omar ibn al-Khattab turned around and he said, what's the issue? He said, my son's been rude to me non-stop. I want you to punish him. So Omar turned around to him and he said, young man, is this true? He said, yes, it's true. He said, but why are you being like this? He said, oh Khalifa, first listen to me. My father gave me a name which is the cause of mockery in the community. So he said, what's the name? He said, the name is Beetle. Yes? So everywhere I go, people call me the beetle. As in, for goodness sake, who names their son after a beetle? You could say lion, tiger, beetle. This poor young man turned around, he said, is it my right that I was given a good name? Omar said, we will not punish you. Rather, the father is in trouble. Because how could you give your son a name? That's a cause of mockery. Therefore, you found that Rasulullah highlighted that the name in Islam is something pivotal to the building of a moral society. Someone asked the question that can we, for example, name our kids Abd al-Zahra or Abd al-Hussein or Abd Ali? Is this allowed? Because sometimes in certain communities you hear certain people, you ask him what's his name, he says my name is Abd al-Hussein. Someone may turn around and say this is shirk. You can only be Abdullah, you can't be Abd al-Hussein. No, it's not shirk at all. There is no harm naming your sons Abd al-Hussein or Abd al-Zahra or Abd Ali. Why? Ubudiyah can either be in worship or in following the principles of that personality. I can be Abdullah because only Allah can be worshipped. Or I could be Abd al-Zahra, for I want to make sure the message of al-Zahra spreads everywhere in the world. I'm her servant. I want to make sure that every lesson of al-Zahra is in people's life. If someone turns around and says, no, I disagree, it's the same as the story of Adam. Angels, when they done sujood to Adam, is that shirk? No. Rather, Allah ordered it as the sujood of obedience, not the sujood of worship. Likewise, if you name your son Abd al-Zahra, it's not servant of Zahra as in Zahra is a god. Rather is that this son, I want him to grow up as the servant of Fatima al-Zahra alayhi salam. Therefore what you had was Rasulullah building a society where the name played a pivotal role. And that's why the question arises, if the name is so important, why did Imam Ali name his sons Abu Bakr, Omar and Uthman? Why? Ali ibn Abi Talib has no other names to name. He names his son Abu Bakr and Omar and Uthman. And as I said, there's a YouTube video where there is a Maulana speaking on this issue. And he's speaking his hardest to try and show that there was no problem between Ali ibn Abi Talib, Abu Bakr and Omar and Uthman. This is all the Shia and their myths. Otherwise, if Ali ibn Abi Talib had a problem with them, he wouldn't name his sons. Let me try and go through these names one by one. Firstly, Abu Bakr. Did Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib name his son Abu Bakr? Abu Bakr, firstly, is not a name. Abu Bakr is a title. Abu Bakr is not a name, it's a kunya. Abu Bakr's original name is what? His original name is Atiq. His mother Salma and his father Uthman. His father Uthman has a title, Abi Quhafa. Yes? Abu Bakr's father is called Abi Quhafa by kunya. You know, someone might call me, if I'm Ammar in the Iraqi community, they might call me Abu Yasser. Yes? Or they might call me Abu Ali. Or they might call me Abu Hussein. Abu is a kunya. Abu Bakr, his original name is what? His original name is Atiq. He was one of three brothers. Atiq, Mu'taq and Utaq. His mother Salma and his father Uthman, they gave him that name. When he became a Muslim, he changed his name from Atiq to what? To Abdullah. Yes? That's why people would know him as Abdullah bin Abi Quhafa. If Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib wants to name his son Abu Bakr after Abu Bakr, then he wouldn't name him Abu Bakr. He would name him Atiq, or he'd name him Abdullah. If people are putting forth this argument, and as we said clearly, Abu Bakr is not a name, it's a title. It's saying the father of someone. Therefore, on the first level, those who came and said that Imam Ali named his son Abu Bakr and that the proof can be seen, firstly we said that's not his name. Secondly, Imam Ali's son, who they say is called Abu Bakr, his original name is Muhammad al-Asghar. Yes, there may have been people who called him with the kunya Abu Bakr, but not Ali ibn Abi Talib. There is not one single hadith where Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib says, my son Muhammad al-Asghar, his kunya or his title is Abu Bakr. Yes, the community may call him. Someone may come one day and say, what's your name? Say Muhammad. Say, I want to call you Abu Bakr as your kunya. I want to call you Abu Hamza. I want to call you Abu Hussein. You can call me anything you want, Habibi. My name is Muhammad al-Asghar. Yes? Thirdly, if Imam Ali did name, let's say, for the hypothetical sake, let's say he named his son Abu Bakr. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib had no good friends of his who were called Abu Bakr. So if he names his son Abu Bakr, it's only after one Abu Bakr. There's no other Abu Bakr in the whole of Mecca or Medina. One of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib's closest friends was Abu Bakr bin Hazim al-Ansari. Abu Bakr bin Hazim al-Ansari was one of the tightest friends of Ali ibn Abi Talib. When someone comes and tells me Imam Ali named his son Abu Bakr, irrespective of the proofs that I just showed that he didn't name his son, even if he did name his son, what, it has to be only after one Abu Bakr? Abu Bakr bin Hazim al-Ansari was this tight with Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why can't Ali ibn Abi Talib name his son after Abu Bakr bin Hazim? Why does it have to be Abu Bakr bin Abi Quhafa? But as we said, there is no evidence ever that Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib gave the title Abu Bakr to his son Muhammad al-Asghar. Never. If Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib wanted to name his son after Abu Bakr, he should call him either Atiq or Abdullah. That's number one. Someone says, okay, well, it's clear that he named his son Omar. Yes? Let's reply to this as well. As for the naming of the son Omar, firstly, look at the story as to how that son was called Omar. In Tarikh Medina of Ibn Shubba, you find that Ibn Shubba mentions, he says Umar ibn al-Khattab heard that Ali ibn Abi Talib's wife al-Taghlabiyya was pregnant, and then he heard that she gave birth. So he told Ali ibn Abi Talib, I want your son to be named after me. And Umar ibn al-Khattab can want his son to be named after him. It doesn't mean that Ali ibn Abi Talib is going to name his son after what Umar wants. I can come to my friend today and say to him, I want your son to be named after me, Ammar. My friend might name his son Hussein, Haydar, Ja'far, Hamza, but in my eyes it might be named after me. when you look at the story of how supposedly Imam Ali's son Omar was called Omar, it's Omar ibn al-Khattab telling Ali ibn Abi Talib, you have to name him after me. I want him to be named after me. Since when did Ali ibn Abi Talib have to listen to Omar ibn al-Khattab about the naming of names? Yes. Secondly, is it Omar or Ammar? That's open to question even amongst the historians. Thirdly, there were 35 Omars living in the time when Omar, son of Ali ibn Abi Talib, was born. So what if he names his son Omar? That means it's only after Ibn al-Khattab. There's no other Omar living. And that's why Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib answered this question. Someone came to him and said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, your son Omar, who did you name him after? Please listen carefully. Your son Omar, who did you name him after? He said, I named him after Omar bin Muqrin. Who's Omar bin Muqrin? Omar bin Muqrin was the son of Salama, the wife of Rasulullah. Yes? Salama, she had got married to Rasulullah, but she had sons from before. Of them was Omar bin Muqrin. This Omar bin Muqrin, do you know how loyal he was to Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib? Unbelievable loyalty. Jamal, front line. Siffin, front line. Governor of Bahrain for Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. You know, for Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib to make you his governor is a prestigious position. That Omar bin Muqrin was the governor of Bahrain, the land of Bahrain. He was the governor of Bahrain for Imam Ali. Therefore, when Imam Ali had a son, when someone asked him, what did you name him? He said, Omar. He said, after who? He could have easily turned around and said, I named my son Omar after Omar ibn al-Khattab. Never. There's not one single hadith where he says, I named my son after Omar ibn al-Khattab. Rather, when they asked him, he said, I named my son after Omar bin Muqrin, the son of Salama. I have so much love for him that I wanted one of my sons to be named after him. Someone then asked the question, how about the son Uthman, the brother of Abu Fadl al-Abbas, son of al-Banin? Who did he name Uthman after? Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib was asked, your son Uthman, who did you name him after? Did you name him after Uthman bin Affan? Wallah, there's not one hadith which says Ali ibn Abi Talib named him after Uthman bin Affan. When they asked him, who did you name your son Uthman after? He said, Uthman bin Mad'un. Uthman bin Mad'un was the 14th revert to the religion of Islam. So when Islam was a new religion in Mecca, the 14th revert to the religion was Uthman bin Mad'un. This Uthman bin Mad'un was an extremely humble and sincere Sahabi of Rasulullah. Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib used to praise him for one thing. He used to say that in the days of Jahiliyyah, before Islam had reached Mecca, there were only a few Sahaba who never drank alcohol. Yes, even though you find many of them were drinking, and the Quran used to say, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَنْتُمْ sukara, don't approach salah while you're intoxicated. There were only a few of them who may not have been Muslims, but they never drank alcohol in their life. Of them was Uthman bin Mad'un, that although he was not a Muslim, he wouldn't drink alcohol, and when the people would ask him why, he would say, because it inhibits my rational faculties, and therefore I don't want to be someone who is rude to others because of what the drink does to me. This Uthman bin Mad'un has a famous story. Aisha once comes to Rasulullah and she says to him, and Aisha once comes to Rasulullah and narrates, she says, I went to the most beautiful lady in Arabia. When we were growing up, she was the most beautiful. I went to her house and she was extremely disheveled. Her appearance was all over the place. So I looked at her, I said, excuse me, what's wrong with you? You used to look so beautiful. Now your appearance is disheveled. She said, who should I look beautiful for? My husband Uthman bin Mad'un spends the whole day fasting and the whole night praying. Yes, we have people like that in our community. They think if they neglect the rights of their wife and their family by praying the whole day, this is what is the meaning of Islam. No, that's not Islam. That's a rahbaniyya btada'uha. That's a type of monasticism that's got nothing to do with our religion. This particular lady complained to Aisha. Aisha went to Rasulullah. She said, Ya Rasulullah, Uthman bin Mad'un's not treating his wife properly. Rasulullah went to Uthman bin Mad'un, but he knew Uthman bin Mad'un was a sincere human being. He went to him. He said to him, Oh Uthman, have you been neglecting the rights of your wife? He said, Ya Rasulullah, I am fasting in the day, I am praying in the night. There were others who were saying, we don't want to put perfume on. There are people who have a belief perfume is a sign of a person who's away from God. Yes? In Christianity, there was a certain time where if you don't perfume yourself, you were seen as being godly. Whereas Rasulullah used to say the only thing in Islam you can be extravagant in is perfume. And that's a license for all of you to go out and buy expensive perfumes. So you find that Rasulullah used to say, the only thing in Islam you can be extravagant in is perfume. Those of you who want to buy Creed tomorrow, and you want to buy, for example, Tom Ford, that was your license to all go out and buy, inshallah. So Rasulullah, these people, these companions would say, no perfume, no meat, no woman. Rasulullah turned around to them and he said to them, no. Rasulullah turned around and said, I am one who perfumes himself. I am one with my woman. I am one who eats meat. Religion is not staying away with these. Religion is to be balanced with these, yes? Eat meat, but not crazily. Try explain that to some of our mosques. Put perfume, no problem. Try and be someone with your wife as much as you can. That is what Islam wants. So that Uthman bin Maz'un didn't reply to Rasulullah like some, because there were some, if Rasulullah said that to them, they have a big mouth, yes? Uthman bin Maz'un, when Rasulullah said, he said, Ya Rasulullah, forgive me. I did not see it in that way. That man, him and Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib were so close that when al-Banin had her child, remember al-Banin gave Imam Ali 4 kids, all of them were at Karbala. When she gave birth, he said, I want to name him Uthman after Uthman bin Maz'un. Therefore, if someone comes and tells me Imam Ali named his son Abu Bakr, no, Abu Bakr is not a name, it's a title. If someone comes and tells me Omar, he named him after Omar bin Muqrin. If someone comes and tells me he named his son Uthman, he named him after Uthman bin Maz'un, I would like to ask this question. If you're telling me Imam Ali loved Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman because he named his sons after them, did they name their sons after Ahlul Bayt or no? Because if Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman are so fond of Ahlul Bayt and they love Ahlul Bayt, so I'm sure they'd name their sons after Ahlul Bayt, yes? Because they knew Ali ibn Abi Talib is from Ahlul Bayt, Hassan and Hussein Sayyid Shabab Ahlul Jannah, Fatimat al-Zahra bad'atun minni man adaha faqad adani. Let's look at the name of their children and if any of them even bothered to name their sons after Ahlul Bayt. Abu Bakr, look at his children. If I look from one side, Asma, Aisha. If I look, for example, Abdul Rahman, I don't see anyone named after Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, yes? Let's move on to Umar. Let's see if he named any of his sons or his daughters. Hafsa, Abdullah, Abdul Rahman. Once again, I don't see anyone who's named. Why don't you name your son Hassan? You love Hassan, don't you? You love him. When you pushed the door, you really loved him. Not an issue to smile about. You love Hassan? Yes. Name your son. Did not Rasulullah in front of you? In front of you. Didn't he used to kiss their neck? He used to kiss their lip, didn't he? So name your son. Or name your son Hussein. I'd love to see you name your son Hussein. Let's move on. Uthman, what's the name of his children? Aban bin Uthman, Abdullah bin Uthman, Sa'id bin Uthman, Maryam bin Uthman. Uthman, why don't you name your daughter Fatima? Why don't you name your daughter Ali? Your son Ali? Why don't you name your son Hassan? Why don't you name your son Hussein? If you all loved Ahlul Bayt as you claim, then name one of your children after Al-Muhammad. Not one of them named his children after Al-Muhammad. When I have an issue with Abu Bakr, Umar and Uthman, and 300 million of us have an issue, it's not because we randomly woke up one morning and thought, you know what, let's just pick someone and have an issue. It's because we saw the usurping of the rights of Al-Muhammad in Saqifa, and we saw the usurping of Fadak from Fatimat al-Zahra, and we saw usurping of the man chosen on the day of Ghadir, and we saw a man who called Rasulullah delirious. And if you want, I'm discussing this historically. Yes, for the person who's worried about his cultural ideals and whether his family will kick him out of his house, yes, that person will not want to take this in because it hurts. But this is history, and you have to ask yourself what you want to hold on to. And I tell you something, a name carried a lot in Islamic history. How? Because a name was either the cause of you living or the cause of you dying. Do you know how many people were named after Al Muhammad who were executed because they were named after them, or no? Do you know how many people? And today we are scared to name Ali, Hassan and Hussein. That when a new husband and wife sit together, what do you think we should name our kid? Ali, boring. There are some say everyone's called Ali. Wallah, I wish the whole earth was full of Ali ibn Abi Talib's name. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. What's the name of your son? I want to name Abbas. There's too many Abbases. Too many. Wallah, that man you can't have too much of. I drink the drink of Abu Fadl all my life. And it would be an honor every time I turn around in this world to hear an Abbas. What shall we name our son? Kadhim? Kadhim, it doesn't come off the tongue nicely. Those 20 years in prison for you in Baghdad, they didn't come off the tongue nicely. When he was in prison, that didn't come off nicely for you. You found, do you know how many people were killed? How many were mocked? I remember Muawiyah coming to Ibn Abbas. He said to him, what did you name your son, Ibn Abbas? I heard you just had a son. He said, Ali. He said, what did you call him? He said, Abul Hassan. He said, so you gave him the name of the man and the title? You had no other name to give? From that day onwards, anyone called the names of Ahlul Bayt was to be vilified. One man mentions, I went to Sham. When I went to Sham, I was walking around Sham. He said, whenever I'd ask what's people's names, they give me these names, Marwan and Ziyad, and names like this. These names. He said, there was no Hassan, no Hussein. And I'm telling you, there are certain countries in the Muslim world today, you will hardly hear Hassan or Hussein. They find it difficult to name. When you say to him, why don't you name? He says, because I'm scared people will think I'm a Shia. Habibi, which Shia? You're a lover of Muhammad and Al Muhammad. Which Shia? So a person walked around in Sham. He said, I was walking around and I look around. There's no one called Hassan Hussein. So he said, I reached my friend's house. He said, when I reached my friend's house, I sat with him. We were talking. Then all of a sudden he said, Hassan, Hussein, come and meet your uncle. So he said, I smiled. I said, Alhamdulillah, at least someone called his sons Hassan and Hussein. So I said to him, MashaAllah, you call your sons Hassan and Hussein? He said, why MashaAllah? He said, well, you call them Hassan and Hussein? He said, no. He said, so whenever I'm angry with them, I send la'na on Hassan and la'na on Hussein. This is what it reached. Hajjaj bin Yusuf al-Thaqafi on Eid al-Adha used to sit on his palace throne. And he used to say, what are people doing today? So his courtiers would say to him, they're killing the sheep, sacrifice, qurbani, yes? So he said, very well, go out there and kill anyone called Ali, Hassan or Hussein. That's it. And there were people killed because of their names. How many were killed? Simply because they held on to those names. When we today want to hold on to the names of Ahlul Bayt. Why? Because we want to make sure Ali ibn Abi Talib's name never dies in Islam. We want to make sure Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussein, all of their names never die. And not only their names don't die, we want to make sure we exemplify their names on this earth, isn't it? As in, do you know what Ahlul Bayt used to do? If Imam al-Sadiq, with all his greatness, if he used to walk past someone's house and he sees a father say to his son, Muhammad, come here next to me, then Imam al-Sadiq would lower his head. The father would say, oh grandson of Rasulullah, why do you lower your head? He said, because whenever you hear the name Muhammad, you should lower your head out of respect for Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Even further than that, even further, you would find, for example, the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, Imam al-Sadiq would come to someone one day, he would say to that person, he would say to him, what's your daughter's name? He said, my daughter's name is Fatima. Do you know what Imam al-Sadiq said to him? Never slap your daughter. The person would say, what do you mean? He said, because it reminds us of the slap of our grandmother Fatima al-Zahra. Yes? That look after your daughter. If she's called Fatima, don't hurt her. Because Ahlul Bayt don't want any child hurt. But especially a child named after al-Zahra. Because it reminds them of what happened to al-Zahra. Therefore the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, even when you look at their sons, all their sons, very similar names. Imam Ali, Hassan, let's say Hussein. Imam al-Hassan, Imam al-Hussein, Imam al-Sajjad, Ali, Muhammad, Hussein, Ali, Muhammad, Hussein. Very similar. They didn't come out with a name which sounds like a tree in China, or they didn't come out with a name that sounds like a city somewhere in America. They came out with names which preserved and looked after their history. And that's why for every every single one of us sitting in this hall today, there is a need to reflect on our names. In which way? When I look at my name, I need to ask myself, have I really represented the man I'm named after? Those of us called Ja'far, have we really spread the knowledge of Ja'far as-Sadiq? Those of us called Rada, have we spread the message of Imam al-Rada? Those of us who are called Abbas, have we sacrificed like Abbas? Those of us who are called Muslim or Habib or Madahir or Hur, have we given like those companions gave? There are many of us, if we reflected on our names and then we reflected on the way we've given an example, wallah, we would be ashamed of what we've been given back to the people we've been named after. When you come to naming your son, or you are named after a famous personality, look after the name of that person, yes? And that's why a question used to be asked. When Aqil, the son of Abu Talib, named his son Muslim, did he name the name so that the characteristic Muslim affects him, or so that it's just a name? You know, in Arabic language we have two types of name. There is a name which is mushtaq and a name which is jamid. A name which is jamid is a name you don't want to have an effect on the person. You're just naming it because it sounds good, and that's normal. Then there is a name which is mushtaq. What's the name which is mushtaq? You want that name to affect the character of the person. If I name my son Jawad, I want him to be a person of generosity like Jawad, yes? If I name my son Kadhim, I want him to restrain his anger like Imam al-Kadhim. When Aqil named his son Muslim, was it because the name was nice? Or was it because he wanted his son to be a submissive personality? It was because he wanted his son to be submissive. He wanted his son to be submissive to the will of Allah and to the will of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. That's why Rasulullah used to look at Aqil. He used to say to him, "Oh Aqil, ya Aqil, inni uhibbuka hubbain, hubban laka wa hubban li hubbi ammi Abi Talib iyak." Oh Aqil, I love you for two reasons. I love you because of who you are, and I love you because of my uncle Abu Talib's love for you. وَأَنَّ وَلَدَكَ مَقْتُولٌ فِي نُصْرَةِ وَلَدِيَ الْحُسَيْنِ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ. And your son will be killed helping my son Hussein alayhi salam. When Aqil named him Muslim, you know why? Because he wanted Muslim to be submissive to Imam al-Hussein, to be loyal to Imam al-Hussein, to protect Imam al-Hussein. And you know what honor Imam al-Hussein gave? Imam al-Hussein gave the highest honor to Muslim. When he wrote the letter to the people of Kufa, he said to them, قَدْ بَعَثْتُ إِلَيْكُمْ أَخِي وَابْنَ عَمِّي وَثِقَتِي مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِي. Muslim bin Aqil. Listen to the wording. I tell you, if this was on your tombstone, you are set for the hereafter. He wrote to the people of Kufa, he said, I have sent to you, because you know Muslim bin Aqil, his title is Safir al-Hussein, correct? He is the representative of Imam al-Hussein. He said, I have sent to you my brother. Subhanallah, Muslim is his cousin. Muslim is his brother-in-law, because you know Imam al-Hussein's sister Ruqayya is Muslim's wife, yes? So Muslim's his brother-in-law, Muslim's his cousin. Imam al-Hussein says, no. إِنِّي قَدْ بَعَثْتُ إِلَيْكُمْ أَخِي. I've sent to you my brother, وَابْنَ عَمِّي, and my cousin, وَثِقَتِي مِنْ أَهْلِ بَيْتِي, and the most trustworthy of Ahl al-Bayt. What an honor that Imam al-Hussein looks at you as the most trustworthy. And you know, when Muslim bid farewell, you know how hard it is to bid farewell to your family. It's difficult, yes. Do you know Imam al-Hussein, when he bid farewell to his family, leaving Sughra was difficult, yes? Because it's a small young daughter of yours, a daughter who you used to embrace, you used to kiss, she used to cry alongside you but smile as well. But Muslim also had to leave Hamida, his daughter, yes. Hamida was the daughter of Ruqayya, Imam al-Hussein's sister. Yes, she was left behind with Imam al-Hussein. Muslim bid her farewell. She said, Father, inshallah, we will meet with you soon. Yes, because she's certain she's going to see her father very soon. Her father reached Kufa. He stayed in the house of Mukhtar al-Thaqafi. He then went out to spread the word of Imam al-Hussein. But when Ibn Ziyad entered Kufa, because as you know, Yazid was in trouble. He knew Muslim bin Aqil was powerful. So Yazid asked Sir John, the Christian Roman, what should I do? Sir John said to him, send Ibn Ziyad, Ibn Marjana. You know, Ibn Ziyad has two titles, Ibn Ziyad, Ibn Marjana, same person. He said, send him and he will look after Kufa. and he sent him towards Kufa. And when he sent him, Muslim bin Aqil looked around. He saw suddenly all his companions either being killed or imprisoned. Hani bin Urwa killed. He saw Maytham al-Tammar imprisoned. Mukhtar al-Thaqafi imprisoned. Suddenly there was a bloodbath in Kufa. In Kunasa Square in Kufa, Ibn Ziyad was beheading for fun. Sometimes people come to me and say, these people of Kufa are the worst people. These people of Kufa are the people who let down Ahlul Bayt. And many of these people of Kufa were beheaded out of their love for Ahlul Bayt. And there are over 60 of the companions of Imam al-Hussein who were from Kufa. So Kufa didn't do a bad job. I ask, what was Mecca and Medina doing for Imam al-Hussein? Anyway, Muslim was alone. He looked around. These companions, thousands of them who were meant to be with him, he went to lead Salah in Masjid al-Kufa. May Allah allow you, all of you, to go and perform the ziyarah of Masjid al-Kufa, where Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib was struck on the 19th. He went in a city where 20 years earlier his uncle Ali was the head of that city. Muslim was now a stranger in that city. 18 people he led them in Salah. By the end of the Salah, 4 people. As he was leaving the mosque, 3. As he left the mosque, 1. Outside the mosque, none. May Allah never show you a day where you're alone in a city as a stranger. And you know what's so beautiful about Muslim bin Aqil? I promise you and I guarantee you, all he was thinking about was Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Allahu Akbar. Wallah, there's not a moment he thought about himself. If you read the Maqtal of Muslim, every single time he speaks, he's like, and I wish Imam al-Hussein knows about this. And he began to walk around Kufa alone. Yes, walking around alone until he became so tired and thirsty. It's as if Muslim and Hussein would die thirsty. Yes. And he sat by a house. He was really tired. He sat by this house. A lady came out. She looked at him. She said, excuse me, what are you doing here? He said, oh lady, I'm a stranger in this town. Oh lady, all I need is some water, that's it. She said, very well, I'll bring you the water, but you have to leave. He said to her, very well. She went outside, back in the house. Her daughter, a young girl, came outside. When her daughter came outside, she looked at him and she saw the man crying and alone. And then the mother came out, saw the daughter crying. So the mother looked and she said, what's wrong with you? Why'd you cry? Then she looked at Muslim. She said, what did you do to my daughter? Then the daughter looked at her, said, mother, he did nothing to me. So the mother said, then what happened? Why did you cry? She said, mother, I asked him, who are you? He said, I'm a gharib in this town. I'm a stranger. She then looked at him. She said, oh man, who are you? He said, I am Muslim. She said, son of whom? He said, son of Aqil. She said, Aqil, brother of Ali ibn Abi Talib? He said to her, yes. She said, my master Ali ibn Abi Talib. She said, oh Muslim, hurry into the house. Don't you know Ibn Ziyad is looking for you? He said to her, yes lady, I know. She said, then hurry in the house, but I can't guarantee you I can look after you, because there are members of my family who are looking for you. She said the whole night, he spent the night in sujood, crying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's as if that night he knew would be his final night, yes? And that night he knew that that would be the night he'll return back to Rasulullah, and he'll return back to Amir al-Mu'mineen. And that's why the narrations mention Ibn Ziyad, when he was informed, because she had a son who went to inform Ibn Ziyad. When Ibn Ziyad heard, he sent Muhammad ibn al-Ash'ath. Muhammad ibn al-Ash'ath came with soldier after soldier. They tried to fight Muslim bin Aqil, but Muslim bin Aqil replied valiantly against them. Muhammad ibn al-Ash'ath wrote back to Ibn Ziyad. He said to him, do you think we are fighting one of the greengrocers of Kufa? This is the nephew of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Send us more, send us more. All of a sudden 100 soldiers began to surround Muslim bin Aqil. He was alone outside the house with no one to protect him. Imagine the scene, one man against hundreds of these soldiers, 200, 300, many of them were around him. All of a sudden a man threw a rock from the top of the house onto Muslim bin Aqil. He fell on the ground directly. You know, normally when you want to take a prisoner, you would allow him to walk. They dragged Muslim bin Aqil across the streets of Kufa. His body on the street, his cheeks rubbing the ground, yes? They took him to the castle of Ibn Ziyad. All he asked for was, give me some water. But you know when he tried to drink the water, the blood covered the water from how much he had been struck. All of a sudden when they took him, Ibn Ziyad was told that he doesn't say salam to his Amir. So Ibn Ziyad looked at him, he said, send salams to your Amir. He said, my Amir is Hussein. That's my Amir. Ibn Ziyad said, very well, then we're going to kill you. So he turned around to Ibn Ziyad, he turned around to Omar bin Sa'ad, he said, may I ask you for 3 favors? They said to him, what are they? He said, the first favor I beg of you is I have some money I owe someone, please pay it back. Omar bin Sa'ad said, we'll never pay it back. But Ibn Ziyad said, be an Arab, give him what he needs to be paid back. Then he said, the second favor, I beg you, give me an Islamic burial, an Islamic shroud. Omar bin Sa'ad said, we'll never give you that. And then the third one, he said, I beg you, tell Abu Abdullah not to come towards the land of Kufa. Allahu Akbar. Look where his heart is. It's with Imam al-Hussein. They said to him, never. They took him to the top of the castle of Kufa. Before you knew it, they threw the body of Muslim bin Aqil down on the ground of Kufa. You know, Imam al-Hussein was on his way. Suddenly a man came to Imam al-Hussein while he was on his journey. He came to him, he said, I have some sad news. He said, what is it? He said, Muslim bin Aqil has been executed. Imam al-Hussein, do you know the first thing he did? He turned around to look for Hamida. Yes? Hamida, the daughter of Muslim. Imam al-Hussein began to walk towards her. I tell you, there is no heart as soft as the heart of Abu Abdullah. He began to walk towards her. Hamida was there. He came, do you know what he did? He patted the head of Hamida. Yes? He patted the head of Hamida. He looked towards her and said, Hamida, my daughters are your sisters and my sons are your brothers. She said to him, uncle, as my father Muslim died. He said to her, Hamida, how do you know? She replied by saying, when you tap the head of a girl, it means that she's become an orphan. Allahu Akbar. But you know what happened at this moment? Sukaina bint al-Hussein came to Hamida. Yes? Sukaina came. She said, Hamida, Hamida, don't worry. Now that you become an orphan, I will look after you. I ask you, brothers and sisters, on the afternoon of the 10th of Muharram, who looked after Sukaina when she became an orphan? I'll leave you with this narration. Muslim bin Aqil, before he died, he asked Taw'a, one day if you ever meet Hamida, kiss her for me. Yes? So when Hamida and Sukaina and the other children were walking through Kufa after Karbala, when they were walking through Kufa, Taw'a came to the ladies. She said, oh ladies, where is Hamida? And they took her towards Hamida. She began to walk towards her. She was about to kiss her. She said, Hamida, I am Taw'a. I met your father before he died. She was about to tell her something. Then the poets say that Hamida told her, before you tell me about my father, I want to ask you one question. When he fell from the castle, was there anyone to carry his body as he lay on the ground? MashaAllah. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with Muhammad and Al Muhammad. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to raise us with the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asr wa zaman. Ya Allah, bless us with the ziyarah of Muslim bin Aqil in Kufa. Ya Allah, raise our children to follow the example of Muslim bin Aqil. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the Surah al-Fatiha, but before it the loudest of your salawat.